Hey writers and readers, welcome to Manuscript Massacre. I'm MC, your Master of Ceremonies. Today we're going to be taking a look at For the Greater Good. We're going to critique this piece, see if it holds up any water, or if it's going to just dribble all over the place. But as always, critiquing is brutal, but honest, and above all, constructive. And if you enjoy these videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube. And if you want to comment along with everyone live, check me out over on Twitch. So, let's get massacring. Welcome, Shawns. How you doing today?
For the greater good. Residents of Castle Safe Haven Mental Hospital recognize the importance of taking care of others even when the caretakers do not.
Even when the caretakers do not. But if the residents take care of, okay, I see. Well, that's interesting. Sounds a little bit like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Okay, this could be a fun story.
Good God. I can't believe the day I've had. Lewis White grumbled as he threw his jacket, a lap blanket, over the arm of a wingback chair. He looked at the coat rack, nodded. General. As usual, the coat rack did not respond.
The coat rack did not respond. Okay, a little bit of a cliche mental condition, but I could work with it. Let me switch over the voice since it looks like our protagonist is going to be male. We'll give them a male voice. Let's see. So, all right. It looks like the main character is going to be a patient. Straightforward, nothing unusual here yet. Not much of a hook in terms of, oh, the coat rack didn't respond, but it's early yet. Let's see where it goes.
The gathering room of the castle had been converted some time ago into an activity room for the hospital. A raucous cluster of people gathered around an ancient table. A couple of attendants dressed in green scrubs stood at attention by the aged stone walls, supervising the proceedings.
Okay, so they converted a castle to a hospital. This is a little bit of exposition here. You are setting up the scene, which is important. So there's always that balance between giving those details and not, hammering us with a history lesson. When you're describing the hospital being converted from a castle, and then you have them gathered around an ancient table. What is an ancient table? What does that mean? Is it stone? Is it wood? Is it like, Knights of the Round Table? Or are we talking like, caveman style Stonehenge, where you just have a giant stone slab? What does ancient table mean? What kind of a castle are we talking about? Are we talking about European castle? Are we talking, ancient Japan? Because Japanese castles are amazing, but they look nothing like European castles. So be specific, give us some details, but also give us those details through the perspective of your protagonist. What do they see? I mean, obviously they're a little crazy, but at the same time, maybe there's key things that they pick up on as what makes this place special.
Castle Safe Haven Asylum took great pains to keep the original furnishings and architecture of the castle. The motto on the sign read, "Behind this drawbridge, you are safe." I could find no one to bring me my tea. The sauna was undergoing repairs, and to top it off, not one of the servants would tell me how the war is going. Lewis stared pointedly at the attendants.
Common newbie mistake. You put the dialogue tag all the way at the end of the paragraph. So for the entire paragraph, I have no idea who was talking. You have, and you're trying to sell a mental condition. This you got to be careful with. You may want to get the sensitivity reader for this, because if you're going to broach these subjects, you can't just say, oh, it's the cuckoos at the loony bin. You will get letters. You'll get some hate mail. Unless it's a comedy and then you're just going over the top on purpose. Then you're fine, as long as you don't offend anybody. But be careful. What is Lewis's problem? Why are they here? What is their actual condition? Are they schizophrenic? Do they have a multiple personality disorder? So in schizophrenia, where they're hearing voices, the coat rack, talking to them, being the general, there are specific conditions for schizophrenia that you would want to look up and you'd want to try to adhere to. So make sure that this dialogue reflects those symptoms, and don't overhammer it. Most schizophrenic people aren't, hearing voices every 20 seconds or every 10 seconds. They basically talk to people in real life as much as they talk to people who don't exist, and they can't tell the difference. And I'm going off of pure memory on that one. Do your homework. If I'm wrong, what is correct? Do that. Don't just guess. As far as the dialogue tag goes, the trick I've mentioned before, put the dialogue tag either before the first sentence, after the first clause. Now, the clause can be a period, but it could also be a comma. So if you have a sentence that's a little bit longer and there's a comma in the middle there, put the dialogue tag after the comma, then do another comma, and keep going. But do not put the dialogue tag 3 sentences, 4 sentences down, because we have no idea who's speaking.
Tom, a squat redhead attendant, found it easiest to play along with the fantasies of the residents.
I'm going to stop there. Whose point of view are we in? Are we in Lewis's point of view? Tom's point of view? It sounds a little bit like you're trying to play the third-person omniscient point of view. Another common newbie writer mistake. If you're not familiar, third-party omniscient means you're God. The narrator is God. Okay. Third-party limited means that the narrator is in the headspace of whichever character they're hovering over in any given scene. So in one scene, or all the scenes, they may be hovering over the main protagonist. Or you may hop heads, and in a different scene, you're hovering over the villain. And in those cases, the narrator only knows the thoughts and feelings and knowledge of that character. They don't know what's happening in the other heads. They have no clue, and you have to write it that way. Third-person omniscient, which is what most newbie writers try to write in first, whether they realize it or not, doesn't work the way you want it to. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's actually harder to write than third-person limited, because the narrator is a character, not in the story, but like your grandfather picking up a book and reading you a story. The way he speaks, the cadence, the rhythms, the word choices, that telling of the story is a character. So for third-person omniscient, yes, you're in the headspace of everybody, so you can know that this redheaded attendant, you probably would know his name or her name, okay, plays along with the fantasies of the residents. But if we're in Lewis's head and it's his fantasy, he wouldn't know that that's what the attendant is doing. So be careful, pick one or the other, and learn how to write in the different forms and what the tricks are. You could also use first person, where it's, I went here, I did this. And if you're doing like a choose your own adventure, you could do the weird one, second person. You go into the store, you buy the things. That's a really weird one, but it's perfectly valid. So pick which one you're going to do and adhere to those rules.
See about someone bringing you your drink, Mr. White. That's a good chap. Finding good help these days is so difficult. Satisfied, Lewis propelled himself toward the conglomeration in the middle of the room. Captain Hark motioned for Lewis to join the odd collection of personages around the table. Glad you could join us, Lewis. I've just been informed by the General that the war is not going well for our planet. General Coat-Rack stood in silent, unmoving affirmation. There have been incursions everywhere. People are in denial. They are saying that the vast number of anomalies surrounding the Earth are simply sunspots. Captain Hark spat this last out in disgust. A fanatical glint gleamed in his glacial blue eyes.
Wow. So, Lewis thinks the Coat-Rack is a general. Meanwhile, who's speaking? Captain Hark. Who's Captain Hark here? Is this another patient, or is this another one of his delusions? I don't know which it is. And that, I mean, that could be a good thing if you're trying to sell later on that we don't know what's real and what's not. But there's not, it's a little confusing at the moment. It just seems like you're hammering, I'm crazy, I'm crazy, I'm crazy, I'm crazy. And I don't like that unless it's you're overselling it for comedic purposes and do a better job with the jokes. Just saying. If you're trying to be serious at all, like this is it sounds like it's a sci-fi type of thing, or maybe not. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but you're trying too hard to sell the crazy. You ever see oh God, what's that movie? It's considered horribly offensive now. Brain. I'll think of the movie and I'll put it up there later. But there's that scene where he goes, "You don't go the full R," and then and he shows the movie clip of him just way overselling it and offending literally everybody. It's a joke, but at the same time, it's not. Mental conditions have specific symptoms. And when you hamper down too hard, it comes off offensive, awkward, and just not funny.
I have seen them, Thelma interrupted, stabbing her finger in the air. She was a small, lean woman. A tinfoil hat sat on her gray head, framing her wrinkled face.
We really went with the tinfoil hat cliche. Maybe this is a comedy. Let's see.
Her soft voice cracked but commanded it.
Thank you, Tropic Thunder. That was where my brain was going. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tension. I have seen them, she repeated. They are lurking in the shadows, waiting. Seen who? Asked Eric, the other attendant. The aliens. Thelma shrieked. I see them when I look outside.
She shrieked. So she's literally shouting at the top of her lungs, the aliens. Careful with your word choices. There's nothing wrong with, they said, he said, she said, they said. That's all fine. But there's an exclamation point. So, shouted works, but shrieked is even higher than shouted. So if that's what you're going for, that's calling attention to everybody in the vicinity. Just want to make sure you clarify what volume level you're trying to set here.
They are waiting until everybody is complacent. Then you'll see them. Spittle sprang from her mouth. Just ask the general. He knows. The general stood silently, in commanding authority.
Okay, so the general's the made up is the coat rack again. There's a lot. You have 3 exclamation points, 4 exclamation points in one paragraph. That is a lot. In general, an exclamation point really does mean shouting loudly. Most of the times you don't need it. But if you do use it, pick which sentences you're trying to yell louder than the rest and give 1 or 2 of those the exclamation point. So the aliens, that one, definitely. He knows. Okay. But then everything else, just give a period. Don't overuse the exclamation point.
The attendants gave each other a knowing look. These nutcases had been going on about an alien invasion for weeks now. The scenarios were different most days, but always the general forbade the lowering of the drawbridge.
Okay, the coat rack refuses to lower the drawbridge. He's a tough general. I don't know what you would lower the drawbridge for, but this seems to be like their escapism. Like one day the general will lower the drawbridge and they'll all leave. You're still in that third person omniscient where these nutcases, okay, that's a thought from one of the attendants, possibly. And I guess you pointed out in the intro, not a very good attendant to be thinking like that. But the narrator's not having the thought that these are nutcases. The attendants are. So give it either a thought bubble or one talking to another. Make it dialogue.
Okay. Enough talk about an invasion. Here, watch the news and you'll see that.
Who's talking? Oh, wait. I see it. Now, all the way at the end.
That there is no war, Eric soothed as he pushed the button on the remote.
Again, watch those dialogues. Okay, Eric said. Enough of this talk about the invasion. That's where the dialect tag goes. And who it...
The screen flashed to...
wait, who is Eric? I'm assuming Eric... Oh, Eric was the other attendant. Okay, you said that on the last page. I missed that. Okay.
Life. Two figureheads discussed the economy. Stocks were rising. Oil was up and jobless claims were down. John grabbed the remote and pointed it at the TV.
Who's John now? I don't remember a John. You're bouncing around names a little too fast. But also you're not really selling who's who and giving us like a juxtaposition of where we are. There's complete white room right now. Where are we? We're in a castle. You said that, sure. And there was a big stone table. But other than that, is this considered like the recreational area? Is it a therapy area? Is it, conjoined with private offices? What are the attendants? Is there medical staff or is it just aides? Give us these details somehow. Now, depending on whose perspective you write in, if you write it from the attendant's perspective, I want clinical details about the room. I want to see it from their perspective, how they view the security of the room, how they view the patients, through the eyes of the attendant. But if it's through a patient, it may be very different, but I still want those details to get rid of that white room. I want to know what they see, what they hear, what they experience. You got to do the five senses. Sight is great. Everybody always goes to sight. But you have four other perfectly good senses to tell you what's going on in that room. And I have a funny feeling the smells are probably not one of the good ones. So point that out.
Channels whisked by. Finding another station, he stopped. Images of people enjoying summer vacations decorated the screen. No one appeared to have any concerns. He jabbed the buttons and saw a live broadcast of the annual summer festival in his hometown. All was well. People played games, ate fair food, laughed.
What? Oh, yeah. Where was I? No, boring. You're killing me. It's realistic to the scene, but what does this have to do with the price of tomatoes? Okay. Cut out a lot of the unnecessary words, unnecessary descriptions that aren't relevant to either the character or the scene in which we're in, the character or the storyline. Those are the two things you want to describe the most: what's relevant to the character and what's relevant to what's happening in the story. I don't care about summer vacations unless I'll put a button there. This is a foreshadowing for later. If it's a foreshadowing for later, summer vacations, and it's going to be a huge thing for the story, go for it. Because then it's that secret, like, haha. TV shows do that all the time. They'll drop something in that looks like it's complete non sequitur, and then all of a sudden it's hyper relevant by the end of it. But I don't think that's what you did here. I don't think you're quite that clever yet. You could get there, though.
No. It can't be. We were told to stay inside. We would be safe. Isn't that right, General?
Well, again, with the dialogue tags 4 sentences later. Killing me. You're killing me.
John looked to the General for reassurance. Receiving none, John went on. It's lies. All lies. It has to be. He panicked, gesturing toward the television. The news lies.
Again, this is part of the problem of overselling crazy. I have no idea what you're talking about right now. and I'm not invested in John. I don't care who he is or what he's doing, what his relationship is to Lewis or Captain Hark. I have no empathy for any of these characters. You haven't given us a reason to. There's no strife, there's no problem, there's no conflict. It's just people existing in a complete state of delusion. Where's the story? Where's the plot? What's driving me to read the next page? Why shouldn't I just end it right here? Say, sorry guys, this story just and we're just gonna call it a night. You know, I've read a lot of critiques where believe me, I wish I could have stopped and been like, okay, we're done. That's as far as I can go, please. But we need a drive. What is the story about? What is the hook that pulls us in and wants to know what is going to happen to John? I need that.
Eric put his hand on John's trembling shoulder. It's okay. But, the general. He said to never lower the drawbridge. That we would be safe inside. Maybe you misunderstood him. You can see for yourself. Everything is normal. Perhaps they are right, John said in confusion.
This hesitation, I've said it before, in general, you want to avoid hesitation. It's like stuttering too, where you have like the if you've ever watched movies and TV shows, and then you listen to one of your friends speaking, or listen to me speaking right now, half the time it's like, let me think, It's like 5 million of those. But in a TV show or a movie, they don't have that. The lines of dialogue are crisp, clear, and easily understood. The only time they stutter or hesitate is when there is this dramatic pause, or they have they are shivering to death, or they have a medical stutter. Those are the only times you see that. So you don't need the per ... or per dash, M dash perhaps. Just perhaps they are all right. Perhaps they are right. Good enough.
There is nothing on this box that shows any war, or aliens, or anything wrong with the world.
Or hesitation.
Maybe we are the ones that are wrong. John seemed to be crestfallen.
Seemed to be. Oh, that is... Oof. Let me just... Actually, better yet, angry. Seem to be is just such a distancing phrase. We've talked about distancing the reader from the page. He seemed to be. He appeared to be. I don't care what you think it is. I want to know what it is. John was crestfallen, although we talked about fuzzy wuzzies. Seemed to be is 2 steps removed. So John is crestfallen, or John's heart fell. Then you got rid of the to be verb. Okay, that's direct, and we as a reader feel it. But this is almost as bad as saying Eric watched John seem crestfallen. Then you're like 3 steps removed or 4 steps removed, and we have no connection whatsoever. Immersion, you want to be as close as possible. John's heart fell. John's smile faded. Not seemed to be.
His entire belief system had been shaken.
No.
Why must you put down the drawbridge?
What's the exclamation point for? And who's talking? Oh, Lewis is again with this dialogue tags. I'm going to try not to harp on it, but oh man, every time I'm like, where are we? I don't understand. And this drawbridge, you've brought up this drawbridge quite a bit now, but you've given us no insight as to what the drawbridge is. Now, that may be intentional. The drawbridge may be a symbolic thing. Maybe it's the door opening to leave the castle or whatever. Or maybe it's a real drawbridge, for all I know. You did say it was an ancient castle. But I want him looking at it, studying it, describing it, what is the drawbridge through John's eyes? What does that drawbridge look like?
We are safe. Why risk it? Lewis's eyes darted back and forth from the door to his fellow residents to the attendants. Fixing his gaze on Tom, he stabbed him in the chest with his finger. You are fired. I shall not have this kind of insubordination from my servants.
Who's Tom now? There's so many names, and it's just, I'm not absorbing it. And I'm we're going pretty fast. I should at least have a slight inkling, but my brain is not catching it at all. So just be aware of that. Too many names spoil the broth.
With that, Lewis turned on his heel and marched back to the activity room. Tom and Eric watched him go. Well, maybe he'll come around. Okay, do we have volunteer to open the door?
Do we have volunteer? Small grammar mistake there, but I like that you spelled out okay. I'm gonna give you props for that, because so many people do okay, the letters, and that's it. That's the actual word. So props there. Do we have a volunteer to open the door? So is the door the drawbridge? And who is speaking now? Tom and Eric watched him go. And again, all the way at the end, Eric asked a small group. But wait a minute. If Tom and Eric watched him go, how is... Blech, that is just evil. Separate those paragraphs. Tom and Eric watched Lewis go. New paragraph. Well, maybe he'll come around, Eric said. Okay, do we have a volunteer who can open the door? He looked around at the group. Spread it out like that so we can understand what's happening, because that is one just compressed sentence of confusion. And I'm not exaggerating. It's you can understand it when you get to the end and you look back. But if the reader has to keep reading a paragraph and then going back and then reading the paragraph and then going back, that rips them out of the story each and every time. So you don't want that. Spread things out, make it easy to read, easy to absorb.
Eric asked the small group. Thelma hung back, pulling her tinfoil cap down low, muttering, "It's not safe, not safe." She shook her head from side to side. "Don't open the door, don't lower the drawbridge. Not safe, not safe. They're out there. They're out there. Waiting. Waiting."
So Thelma is definitely anxious, that's for sure. But I don't know what her condition is. I don't know if you had a specific condition in mind. Again, this is where research comes in handy. What are the different types of things? What are the different kinds of mental institutions? There are some where people check themselves in. There are some where people are forced to be there. There are some that are violent, some that are almost completely normal. They're just suffering from things like intense PTSD symptoms, or a psychopathy that makes them incapable of interacting with society on a productive level. There are different kinds of conditions, and you have to research it. You can't just make it up. Oh, it's a nut house full of nutty people. I have not gotten a single joke in this story. This is not a comedy. I would love for it to be sold as a comedy, and that way you can get away with it a little more. But no. Fail. And this goes for any story when you're talking about a subject. If you're going to write a story about a heart surgeon, you may not have to learn how to do an actual heart surgery, by the textbook, but you should at least have watched at least one YouTube and listened to the doctor speaking, write down notes. You should have Googled how the surgery is performed, what the key terminology is that you need to know. You don't have to be a cardiac surgeon to write a story about about a heart doctor, but you have to research some of his actual profession and learn what you need to learn to sell it. Writers write thousands of different characters with all kinds of occupations, some of them completely made up. So, you go to sci-fi and you have the Jefferies Tube A engineer. What does that mean? Well, now you got to describe it. What does it mean? What is it in reference to? What does it relate to? You're talking about a spaceship. You need to know the ins and outs of that spaceship. You may not have to know every single component of the ship. You don't need to do that. But whatever you're interacting with, you do need to know. And that's goes the same for any contemporary story too. Even if you're just talking about, a kid at a candy store and the clerk. What is a clerk's job? You have to know how to operate a cashier, per se. It's something simple, stupid, but Googling it for 10 seconds can save you a world of trouble and sell your characters so much more. So Thelma just seems like kind of batty crazy without any real connection to a specific psychoses that I'm aware of. And if you have one in mind, I'm not getting it. So be careful, because again, you're already dipping in offensive territory.
Suddenly, Thelma's eyes cleared, and she spoke with lucidity. She looked straight at Eric. Just because you cannot see them does not mean they are not there. That door is our safety. You do not have the right to put us in danger just because you don't believe. This isn't just your life. Eric grunted a dismissal and eased the door open a crack. Everyone held their breath.
Everyone, including the attendants?
When nothing happened, Eric flung the door open. Thelma was the first to see them materialize. One moment is all it took for the invaders to swarm through the open door. Translucent beings floated through the castle, siphoning the life from each person they passed. Thelma fell to her knees and sobbed. No mercy was shown.
Alrighty. Let's I'm gonna let it finish before I comment, because interesting.
Eventually, the intruders made it to the activity room.
So now we finally have a name for the room, all the way in the last paragraph of the story. It's an activity room.
They found Lewis sitting in the wingback chair talking to the coat rack. Ah, see, General. I told you that the servant's personal choice would win out. The safety of our entire group mattered not when it came to his own desire. At that, Lewis ceased to be.
What? Hansel? Hansel? I have no brain cells left with which to process that. I can't tell whether or not you were trying to suggest that the delusions were real, or that they all just collectively experienced this hallucination together of the translucent beings. It's a pretty short story, so you'd have to expand it a lot more for it to work itself out one way or the other. But I'm genuinely confused what your intent was here. And Lewis's last words, which I keep confusing Lewis and John. I can't tell which is the main character. I really can't. What that sentence means. I told you the servant's personal choice would win out. And I guess he means that the attendant gets to decide and they don't. You're trying to bury everything in illusion and hallucination or delusion, and you're trying too hard. I think this would actually be easier if you tried less hard, and most importantly, write from one character's perspective only. Lewis, make him the main character, or John, make them the main character. Either way, one POV, in their headspace and the world around them. You don't even have to describe this as a mental institution. You don't have to describe the coat rack. It's the general. And just give us clues that things are off. The introduction, right in the first page. Let me go back for a second. Okay. The residents of Castle Safe Haven Mental Hospital recognize the importance of taking care of others even when the caretakers do not. That is a great intro with foreshadowing that it's a mental institution and things are off. So for Lewis's delusions, the rest of the story can be utter, I don't want to say nonsense, but within the framework of his mind. He doesn't even need to know that he's in a hospital. Okay. You have the delusion be fully formed in a way that it's his own world. You already told us it was a mental hospital, so the reader is with you. So whenever they hear crazy, when the general says something, or when he talks to the general and the general never responds, okay, we can't tell if it's a person or something else, but maybe the general falls over and his hat falls off, and suddenly he's looking at and there's a coat rack on the floor. Where did the general go? That could be a clue that a delusion broke for a second, and it helps shape the cracks in the delusion. But then at the end, when things happen and the beings come in, we can't tell if it's delusion or not. And that could be intentional. That could be good. But it's so specific as to what it's doing. It's not a 50-50. It sounds like they legit came in and destroyed everybody. What does that mean? I can understand that through the idea of a delusion that they all cease to be, but if it was a delusion, he would wake up and be like, oh, I'm still here. I guess the aliens were not real, or they're coming back. And then the delusion would create a new story from it. But you made it too specific. You made it too like it suddenly went full sci-fi and everything happened despite the delusion. And I don't think you want that for the type of story you're writing. You want that 50-50. Is this fake or is something happening? There's another movie reference. I will totally have to look it up because I will not remember the name of this. But there were these three women who were in a mental institution. Each of them had their delusions, and they were doing this major battle to break out of the place. And it kept flipping back and forth between the institution and their fantasy. Use that as an example to show how the delusion melds with reality. And what they did was they did the back and forth. So if you wanted to do that, you'd have 2 points of view. The point of view of the attendants and the point of view of Lewis. And you'd flip back and forth between the two. And that would be fine. Either way, stay in one headspace at a time. Figure out the story you're trying to tell and make it so that the reader is absorbed in the story and wants to find out what happens next. So going back to the rest of the story, I wasn't all that immersed. Honestly, I'm almost bored talking about it, let alone reading it. And I say that with a grain of salt because I don't want to tell authors, I'm sorry, your story is boring. But it's all about conflict. You were talking, the conflict of this story was the drawbridge. You gave us no reason to care about that drawbridge. You didn't even associate it with the door until the last possible second. You need those crisp details so that the reader knows they're talking about the door. And what is the door? Go to switch to the attendant's point of view. What is the door? Is it leading to the outside of the institution? Is it leading to the front lobby? Or just to another wing of the hospital? Give us those details so that we have this association. And the danger they're talking about, sell it so that things start to happen that are ignored by the caretakers but are real for them. And so there's that question of, is it a shared delusion or are the caretakers not noticing Is something being missed? Have it be just enough that the reader can't tell. And that helps sell the type of story you're writing. It helps give us that conflict, the what if. But as it stands, what if this was a more interesting story? That's where I'm left. But it's not bad for a first draft. Like I said, you have this set up for an interesting delusion versus reality story. If you do your homework, you give us conflict that raises the stakes and draws us toward the conclusion. You do that, and this will become a very interesting short story. So that's all I got for now. It's a short story again this week. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. New episodes are streaming live every Wednesday from 7 to 9 here on Twitch. That's Eastern Time. And then after I finish editing, I upload it within a couple of days, hopefully by Saturday the latest. And if you want to submit your own stories, go to the website, manuscriptmassacred.com. There's a link to request Discord access. And if you join the Discord server, there's a place where you can submit your own stories to be critiqued. And I'd be happy to take a look. So until next time, cheers all.